time I heard the phrase, happy in my soul, I was lying around a pool, sipping rosé with a girlfriend. The first time I actually used that phrase myself, the first time I really recognized that feeling was a few months later. I was in a barn in Petaluma, California. About 40 minutes before, a few minutes before, about 40 of us were sipping wine, playing bocce, getting to know each other on the rolling hillsides of Bloomfield Farms. It looked like a scene out of a J. Crew ad. The sun was setting over the hills, streaming that perfect golden light. Wine was flowing, people were laughing, and we were all looking stylishly country despite being from the city. A bell rang in the distance, and we started making our way down a stone pathway beneath low-hanging trees that you kind of had to bob and weave beneath a little bit. We walked past a fire pit and long overbloomed artichoke plants with those beautiful purple spikes standing proud. There was a picturesque barn in the distance with horses roaming about. Wine in hand, we were making our way to that barn for my first ever truly farm-to-table dinner. And I felt like I was floating. As we entered the barn, a barn that had little white lights strung up high above, a retro old pickup truck in the corner, communal tables with kind of mismatched antique plates and hand-picked wildflowers, we started to sit down for dinner. And I realized as we sit down that I'm sitting across from a winemaker for one of the wines that night. My friend, 2 people down, is talking to the woman who had raised the goat that we were going to be enjoying for dinner that night. Everywhere around me, there were deep connections to the land, the people, and the ingredients that made this dinner possible. That night changed my life. Finally having the words to recognize what I was feeling, happy in my soul, made me realize that this is what life is about for me. And in that moment, I felt like I finally woke up. You see, about 5 years earlier, from the outside, I looked like I had it all. A good marriage, great family and friends, high-profile job with industry respect among my peers, and a salary to match. And I lived in the phenomenal Bay Area. But something was missing. Good wasn't great. And so I started to reflect on my life and figure out what brought me those moments of joy. And I found some themes. One of the strongest themes was that those moments that made me feel most alive, most fulfilled, and most like I was living my life's purpose were those moments that gave me this happy in my soul feeling. Moments that I have never connected before because I didn't have that phrase to recognize the feeling, the sensation, the theme. Visions of a 6-year-old me watching my French grandmother making homemade croissants layer by buttery layer and learning through her what croissants even were and the importance of baking and patisseries to her homeland and culture. Or that time where I was visiting a Parmigiano Reggiano farm outside of Bologna, where the father hadn't taken a single day off since his wedding day 30 years prior. And why would he? He loved making that cheese and giving it the daily attention it deserved. And as I sat with him and his wife and his son, I felt that. Or there was the time where I was kind of trekking through a rural part of Zanzibar with the cutest little kids kind of chasing behind us as we walked by what felt like miles of banana trees to track down this local banana beer we had heard about. The journey to get there, the people we met along the way, and the stories were priceless. And worth swallowing down every sip of that not quite as delicious as I imagined banana beer. There were the stories and the people and the experiences that went along with eating live baby octopus in Korea and sheep eyeball in South Africa and more insects and small rodents than I can count across many other parts of the world. But as I thought through these memories, as I thought through them, they were kind of bombarding me. Like, do you remember that scene in Willy Wonka's Chocolate Factory where they're headed down that chocolate river and all of a sudden the boat heads into the tunnel and there's all these crazy weird images flying around and bombarding? Right. So I was in that tunnel on the way home from the Bloomfield Farms dinner. And these were those memories that were hitting me all of a sudden now that I had that phrase of happy in my soul. Right, that memory, that memory. Oh, wow, this is a thing. So what does happy in my soul really mean? For me, Happy in my soul are those moments where you stop, take a breath, and really live in the moment without even realizing it. Those moments where everything else in your life kind of disappears and you're just absorbed and lost in that moment. And when they're over, you almost feel like you're waking up from a dream. Those moments where you actually forgot you had a cell phone for a minute because you were so viscerally in the present. You weren't Instagramming every second of it, right? And for me, all of those moments, as you can probably tell by some of those stories, all of those moments really revolved around traveling through food and drink to get to know the people and the stories and the culture in different places. Moments where I was a taste of place explorer. So as all these images were flying around in my head and kind of bombarding me and overwhelming me, to be quite honest, one memory really stood out. One memory that was so deeply meaningful and honestly so pivotal that it's partially responsible for me founding my business, The Crafty Cask, almost 20 years later, almost without even realizing it. So I was in San Sebastian, Spain, studying abroad. And I had the opportunity to visit a true cideria, or cider house. Picture this. You walk into a building that has kind of a barn-like or farmhouse feel to it. There's cedar chips covering the floor. Huge casks, I mean like 10-foot tall casks lining the room. Standing communal tables kind of scattered throughout, except in front of a few of the casks. As you approach, you start to see that some people are gathering in front of some of these casks where there's a wide open space in front of them. And they're gathering in front of one cask in particular, whose spout has been opened and is now shooting a liquid rainbow of cider across the room for you to catch in the cup that's in your hand. I keep approaching, but I'm nervous as crazy, right? What is happening here? What if I don't understand what's going on at all? This isn't my culture. I don't know what I'm doing. What if I'm not even supposed to go over there? What if this is like the experts who know how to do this thing and I'm just supposed to go sit and wait for them to come tell me what to do? But I approach, and I make my way to the front of the line, and I do it. I catch some cider from halfway across the room in my cup, probably splashing and spilling quite a bit in the process, and I step aside. Now, keep in mind, this is 2001. For context, those popular cider brands that you're probably familiar with today, those weren't even introduced in the United States until 2012. I was also only 20 years old. The only cider I had ever tasted was the non-alcoholic kind at a local apple orchard, right? So I take a sip of this. My taste buds explode with life. They're excited and confused all at the same time. This tastes nothing like any cider I have ever had. It's dry with almost like a cheesy funk to it. Sounds weird, but I loved it. In an instant, I got a glimpse into a people and a culture and a place, and in that second, I became a hardcore Spanish cider enthusiast. And that was before I even understood what the rest of this experience had to offer. So once you catch your cider in your cup, and the reason they do that, by the way, is to aerate it, because it is a still cider, whereas we're used to mostly carbonated cider, so they're aerating it so it kind of has a little bit of carbonation while you drink it. So as you catch this in your cup, you go belly up to one of those standing communal tables where you're served the same food as everyone else. Manchego cheese, membrillo, Marcona almonds, cod tortilla, bread, of course, we're in Europe, right? And a steak as big as your head and so rare it is practically still mooing. Those cedar chips I mentioned that were all over the floor, apparently not just to catch the splashing and spilling cider, but also the occasional drips of blood coming from your super rare steak. Glorious. Where was I? How did I get here? I was lost in the moment, lost in the experience, connecting with a people and culture that I barely knew and loving every minute of it. Happy in my soul. So why am I telling you these stories today? To get you all to become more adventurous eaters? No. Well, sure, yes, do that too. That's super fun, but no, not really. Because you see, it wasn't really about the food and drink. It took a lot of soul searching for me to figure out that it wasn't about the what, it was about the who and the why and the how behind the food and drink that excited me. It was about the stories and people and what all of that passion and culture and history had created for me to experience. It was about connecting with the person who was giving me the opportunity to try whatever I was trying and hearing their story. That's what made the world around me fall away. So let's talk a little bit about this soul searching and how I figured out that it wasn't the more obvious of the food and the drink. It was a long journey, for sure. But there are two things that really stand out that I want to share with you today that helped me really dig deeper and find what I was truly passionate about. So let me explain. When I was in Tanzania, I kept commenting about how insanely happy everyone seemed, despite how difficult their lives were and how incredibly poor they were. I mean, they were laughing and joking and singing and dancing and always inviting me into their homes to share with me whatever they could. Why did they seem so much happier and more relaxed than we did in the States when their life looked so much harder? Even after all of our vices and therapy and prescriptions, they still seemed more happier and relaxed. It didn't make sense to me. And so I started to probe with these friendly, happy people who were inviting me into their homes. And this was part of it. Yes, life is hard, but it's quiet while it's hard. And I'm out working in the field, or I'm walking to the closest store, or I'm stooped down over a flame cooking for hours at a time. And when it's not quiet, I'm connecting face to face with my family, my friends, and the people in my community. So while life is hard, it's also simple in a lot of ways. And that simplicity breeds space. Space to think, space to appreciate, space to understand yourself and connect with others. Our lives are all so busy and complicated these days, and so overscheduled and overstimulated that we could be having one of these happy in our soul moments and not even realize it. Fly right by us, honestly, like they did to me for years when I wasn't connecting the dots at all. And so now, I make a conscious effort to create more of that space in my own life. While on the bus, while walking to meet friends for dinner, while standing in line at the coffee shop or the grocery store. This isn't a big thing, right? But it's in those moments, instead of filling that time like we all have a tendency to do now, I take my headphones out. I put my phone away. I listen. I observe. I breathe. I make eye contact, and I connect with others. While it seems so simple, it has made such a big difference in helping me identify how I'm feeling, what I'm feeling, what's lighting me up inside, what I want more of in my life, and honestly, what needs to go. Awareness is a critical first step to finding happy in our soul, and we have to retrain our brains to slow down, process, connect the dots in order to find that deeper passion. It's crucial. So after hearing a couple of these stories, you might think that the second thing that really helped me on this soul-searching journey is travel. It would be a good guess. I kind of thought that too. But you see, that's still at that surface level. Yes, travel opens my eyes. Travel helps me understand myself. Travel helps me understand others. Absolutely, no doubt of that. But as I dug deeper, and as I used some of this newly created space and quiet, I realized something. I realized that it was more about getting out of my normal routine and comfort zone and less about the travel itself. Surrounding myself, even while at home, with people who live differently than I do, think differently than I do, maybe even have different values than I do, helped me realize that there were a million different ways to slice and dice my life. Why did I have to work a corporate 9-to-5 job? Why did I have to stick out a marriage that by society standards was good when I deeply craved great? Why did I have to be polite and not bother everyone every time I took a sip or a taste of something that blew my mind and I had a million questions? Why did I have to value income over passion? It's so easy to get caught up in what's normal and what's expected, but I found that by surrounding myself with what felt abnormal, I was able to find my own new normal. Remember that Parmesan farmer I was telling you about? It didn't make sense to me at first. How can you be happy when you haven't taken a vacation day in 30 years? I don't get it. But I get him now. I am what I do. By developing these passions and really figuring that out, I created a life where my business allows me to spend more of my time lining up my passions for the stories and the people behind the food, drink, and travel with the way I spend my time and make a living. But deeply connecting with your passions is a continual journey of putting yourself in other people's shoes, learning how to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, challenging what normal really is and if that matters, and just connecting with the world around you on a different level. So the question I'll leave you with today is this. Do you have enough moments in your life that make you truly happy in your soul? Those moments where the world around you falls away. The moments that light you up inside from the depths of your belly. And if not, what changes can you make today, even if small, to get just a little bit closer? Thank you for having me and listening to my stories today. I wish you all a life full of moments that make you feel present, connected, and truly happy in your soul. Thank you.